Few people in human history have ever lived inside a body that made them impossible to ignore. Imagine walking into every room and instantly becoming the center of attention, not because of fame, not because of choice, but because your very existence defied what people believed was physically possible. For Andre the Giant, this wasn't imagination. It was reality. Those who knew him closely told stories that sounded almost unreal. They spoke of nights where he consumed thousands of calories worth of alcohol without losing control. They described a man so large that airplanes, cars, and even ordinary furniture seemed like toys in his presence. To the world, he wasn't just a man. He was a myth, a legend, the eighth wonder of the world. But behind the towering frame, behind the fame, behind the roar of millions of fans, there was something far more human. A life shaped by pain, isolation, and a quiet story that remained hidden for years. Because when Andre the Giant died in 1993, he didn't just leave behind a legacy. He left behind a daughter, and her story would reveal a side of him the world had never truly seen. Andre René Roussimoff was born on May 19, 1946, in a small farming community in France. From the moment he entered the world, something was different. He weighed over 13 pounds at birth, far larger than most newborns. But no one could have predicted what would come next. His parents were ordinary people. His mother stood just over 5 feet tall, and his father was slightly above average height. Nothing in their family history suggested that their son would grow into one of the largest human beings ever recorded. Yet, by the age of 12, Andre had already reached over 6 feet tall. Children his age barely reached his shoulders. Adults stared at him with disbelief. Teachers didn't know how to treat him, and strangers often looked at him with curiosity, confusion, or even fear. But inside, Andre was still just a boy. He performed well in school. He especially enjoyed mathematics, where logic and numbers offered a sense of order in a world that increasingly treated him as something unusual. He loved sports, particularly soccer, where his size made him a natural goalkeeper. Standing in front of the net, he was almost impossible to score against. But his rapid growth came with consequences. By the time he was 14, his life took a sudden turn. His father needed help on the family farm, and Andre left school to work full-time. His massive strength allowed him to do the work of multiple men. He lifted loads, others couldn't move. He endured physical labor that would exhaust most adults. Yet deep inside, Andre knew this wasn't his destiny. He didn't want to spend his life hidden away in a small village. He sensed that his size, this thing that made him different, could open doors far beyond the boundaries of his hometown. And eventually it did. What Andre didn't fully understand at the time was that his extraordinary growth wasn't simply natural. It was caused by a rare medical condition known as acromegaly. This condition causes the body to produce excessive amounts of growth hormone, leading to continuous enlargement of bones and tissues. It doesn't stop when normal growth ends. Instead, it continues relentlessly. His hands grew enormous. His feet reached size 22. His facial features became more pronounced. His body expanded in ways that brought both strength and suffering. Simple things became difficult. He couldn't use telephones normally because his fingers were too large for the dial. He struggled to fit into cars. Airplane travel, which would later become essential to his career, was deeply uncomfortable. Even everyday furniture often couldn't support his weight. Yet, Andre didn't complain. He adapted. He endured. He moved forward. And soon, the world began to notice him. At 18 years old, Andre moved to Paris. There, his life changed forever. Wrestling promoters immediately recognized what they were seeing. They weren't just looking at a large man. They were looking at a once-in-a-generation phenomenon. He began training to become a professional wrestler. At first, he lived modestly. He worked physically demanding jobs during the day to support himself while training at night. But once he entered the ring, everything changed. Crowds couldn't believe their eyes. He stood over 7 feet tall. He weighed more than 500 pounds. Opponents looked small beside him. Matches felt less like competitions, and more like witnessing something extraordinary. Word spread quickly. Soon, Andre wasn't just wrestling in France. He was wrestling across Europe, then Japan, then North America. Everywhere he went, the reaction was the same. Shock, awe, fascination. He became known as Andre the Giant. By the 1970s and 1980s, Andre had become one of the most recognizable figures in the world. Fans packed arenas just to see him. Children stared at him as if he were a superhero. Adults struggled to comprehend how someone his size could move with such agility. He joined the World Wrestling Federation, where his fame reached unprecedented levels. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was an attraction. He remained undefeated for years, not simply because of skill, but because his physical presence was overwhelming. Opponents found it nearly impossible to match his strength. Yet despite his image as an unstoppable force, Andre was known among those close to him as gentle, kind, and soft-spoken. He didn't see himself as a monster. He saw himself as a man who longed for normalcy in a life that rarely allowed it. But his body came at a cost. The same condition that made him famous was slowly destroying him. His joints deteriorated under the weight of his massive frame. His knees weakened. His back endured constant strain. Pain became a daily companion. Still, he continued performing. He traveled constantly, often spending over 300 days per year on the road. Hotels, airplanes, and arenas became his home. The cheers of fans became the soundtrack of his life. But fame didn't erase loneliness. In public, people saw his size before they saw him. They approached him for photos, autographs, and stories. Few understood the person behind the legend. He often felt isolated, trapped inside a body that the world admired. But few truly understood. One of the defining moments of his career came at WrestleMania 3. The arena was filled with over 93,000 fans. The energy was electric. The anticipation was overwhelming. Andre faced Hulk Hogan in one of the most iconic matches in wrestling history. For years, Andre had been undefeated. He represented something unbeatable, something permanent. But that night symbolized change. When Hogan lifted Andre's massive body and slammed him onto the mat, it became one of the most unforgettable moments ever witnessed in sports entertainment. It wasn't just a move, it was history. Outside the ring, Andre also found success in film. He appeared in The Princess Bride, where audiences saw a different side of him. Instead of a terrifying giant, they saw kindness, humor, and warmth. For many viewers, it was the first glimpse of who Andre truly was. Not just a giant, but a gentle soul. Yet, while the world celebrated his career, his personal life remained complicated. In 1979, Andre became a father. His daughter, Christensen Roussimoff, was born into a world already shaped by her father's fame. But their relationship was never simple. Andre's constant travel kept him away for most of her childhood. He spent nearly all his time moving between countries, performing in front of crowds, fulfilling professional obligations that left little room for family life. Robin didn't grow up with a traditional father figure. She saw him only occasionally. Their interactions were limited, their bond fragile. Yet he didn't disappear entirely. He provided financial support. He remained connected in small ways. He existed in her life, even if from a distance. Their relationship wasn't defined by closeness. It was defined by absence, complexity, and quiet attempts at connection. As Andre aged, his health declined rapidly. The years of physical strain, combined with his medical condition, began to take their toll. Walking became more difficult. Pain intensified. His body, once his greatest strength, became his greatest burden. By 1992, he could no longer continue wrestling. For the first time in decades, Andre stepped away from a ring. The world he had dominated moved on. And just 1 year later, in 1993, Andre the Giant died at the age of 46. His death marked the end of an era. But it wasn't the end of his story, because his legacy lived on through Robin. Christensen Roussimoff grew up in the shadow of a legend. Standing around 6 feet tall, she inherited some of her father's presence, but not his extraordinary size. Unlike Andre, she did not suffer from acromegaly. She lived a different life, one away from wrestling, one away from spectacle. Yet, after Andre's death, Robin found herself in a unique position. She became the guardian of his legacy. She inherited the rights to his name, image, and likeness. Suddenly, companies, filmmakers, and organizations approached her, seeking permission to use Andre's identity. She faced a responsibility few people ever experience: to protect the truth of a man the world believed it already knew. Robin chose not to follow her father into wrestling. Instead, she chose something quieter. She worked behind the scenes to preserve his memory. She carefully evaluated projects to ensure they honored who Andre truly was, not just the myth, but the man. She appeared at conventions, meeting fans who shared stories of how Andre had impacted their lives. Through their memories, she discovered new pieces of her father. Stories of kindness, stories of generosity, stories of humanity. These stories helped her understand him in ways she hadn't been able to as a child. She also contributed to documentaries and legacy projects, ensuring that Andre's story would be told with honesty, not as fantasy, but as truth. She helped establish initiatives that supported future generations, honoring the entertainment world that had shaped her father's life. Robin didn't try to become Andre the Giant. She became something equally important: the bridge between legend and reality. Andre's life was filled with contradictions. He was larger than life, yet deeply human. He was admired by millions, yet often felt alone. He was seen as indestructible, yet lived with constant pain. He became a global icon, yet struggled with ordinary relationships. And perhaps most importantly, he left behind a daughter who would ensure the world remembered him not just for his size, but for his soul. Today, Andre the Giant remains one of the most unforgettable figures in human history. His image still appears in films, games, and memories. His matches are still watched. His story still inspires fascination. But through Robin's efforts, something even more important survives: the truth, not just of a giant, but of a man who lived in a body the world could never ignore, a man who carried both greatness and burden, and a man whose legacy continues, not through his size, but through the quiet strength of the daughter who carries his story forward.